And welcome back. Continuing to work on the right flap. I've since fast forwarded a little bit since the previous video where it left off. In the previous video I was in the middle of deburring everything, so since then I have painted all of the components with primer, the self-etch SEM primer that I've been getting from Aircraft Spruce. That stuff's pretty good. It's very fast drying, and it's self-etching, so you don't have to do any kind of, other than cleaning the parts, you don't really have to do a whole lot of preparation work to try to make sure that it adheres and provides the protection it's supposed to. So as you can see, I've got all of the ribs attached. The majority of the ribs have doublers, and so those are all flush riveted to the nose ribs. And then also you can see the flap attachment sub-assemblies there in the forefront on the table. Those, the attachment points, the long portion is riveted to the nose ribs, and then the back side of each of those is flush riveted together, kind of like you do with the trailing edges, where you ensure both the top and the bottom side is flush with the surface. And so that's what I did there. The instructions have you make a tool that acts as a wedge, because there's a difference in height between where the rivet actually is and the rest of the flap attached bracket. And so it's so you can back rivet and use a standard riveter. I just used my squeezer, and it was a whole lot easier than trying to develop the tool that they wanted you to use. So here I've gone through and attached all of the ribs in the nose, both in the ribs and the nose ribs, to the spar. One thing you saw is that when you go to attach the ribs to the spar, you have to bend the rib out, and the instructions tell you to do that so that you can get the squeezer in there and attach and squeeze the rivets. You just make sure, obviously, that you bend them back in place. And then here, these are the two nose ribs where the actuator is going to attach. And so they've both of those nose ribs have doubler plates, and then the inboard nose rib has a nut plate. And so when you go and final assemble everything, you'll put the bearing of the actuator in between those nose ribs, and then put the bolt through, and it'll tighten into the nut plate on the inboard rib there. Now I'm starting to put all of these skins and attach them to the frame. The instructions have you put the nose rib on first and cleco it in place, and then you put the top skin in place and rivet it together, and then after that you put the bottom skin in and rivet it together. Now the one thing you want to be cautious of while you're putting these skins on is trying to ensure that everything is straight, or as straight as you can, obviously. Being a part of the control surfaces for the wings, you want to make sure the trailing edge especially is straight. So what it's going to have you do is, as you see me here, cleco the nose skin to the spar, and then you're going to put the top skin in place, cleco it to the spar, and then what I ended up doing is using a right angle on the trailing edge to hold everything straight before I start riveting the skins together. And then once the top skin and the nose skin are in place, then you'll put the nose or the bottom skin. And then there you saw me taping off where the trailing edge is going to be located. You're going to use the double-sided tape. One thing that I did not do on the aileron is use the double-sided tape when I put the trailing edge in. I had forgotten that in the instructions it basically tells you, after you do the elevator, that every trailing edge is going to require double-sided tape. And again, the double-sided tape is more of just to help ensure that the trailing edge is straight when you go to rivet it together. I was fortunate with the aileron that the trailing edge ended up pretty well, considering I didn't use the double-sided tape to hold it in place while I was riveting. But again, that's because I use the right angle to hold everything together while I'm doing it. So And here you see that right angle piece that I was talking about. It's just an aluminum piece that I got from Ace Hardware. And you see me moving these clamps around. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to basically walk the skin down so that it's tight against that angle piece. As I was starting to put it on initially, it would pillow between those clamps. So I kind of move them around just to make sure, kind of walk the skin down and keep it straight along that angled piece. And I highly recommend going down to Ace or Lowe's or wherever you go for your local aviation department parts store. Go down there and get an angle piece because it helps tremendously. As you'll see in the next video, the trailing edge comes out really well. I'm pretty impressed by how well it came out. So I'm going to let this video run out here. Again, for those who continue to follow these videos, I appreciate it. If you get a chance, hit that like button for me. It helps me out. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe and hit the alarm notification, and it'll tell you anytime I release one of these new videos. This is a fun project, and if you have any interest in this whatsoever, I highly recommend it for anybody. If I can do it, certainly you can do it. We'll see you next time.